This is CNC World, a new perspective.
They're cute, they're cuddly, and they're in trouble. Over the last decade, koala numbers have been swiftly and silently plummeting. In many ways, the koala is emblematic of the issues facing Australia's unique native wildlife. It's a treasured national icon under threat from all sides, but there is no consistent or comprehensive approach to protect it. Lifestyles has more.
As rampant development continues to destroy and fragment the koala's habitat, only a handful of underfunded and passionate Australians stand between the koala and an uncertain future. One of them is Australia's former Environmental Minister, Tony Burke. He's a man who has made a difference in the silent battle to save the koala, and he found inspiration from an unlikely ally, the panda.
And it was only last year that, as Environment Minister, I had to put the koala on the threatened species list, something that we thought would never happen. But for Queensland and New South Wales and Canberra, we have a chronic shortage in the number of koalas from what we used to have. And the work that China's done in creating sanctuary areas that are safe for the panda provide a bit of guidance as to what we are going to have to increasingly look at with the koala.
Dr. Matthew Crowther is a senior lecturer at the School of Biological Sciences at the University of Sydney. He agrees that Burke's determination to list the koala represented a turning point in the marsupial's decline.
It was actually 2012 when they were listed by the Commonwealth government, the Australian government, as threatened. Because they weren't listed, they were listed in New South Wales and some populations in Queensland, but now they're listed at the Commonwealth level. So that's the tipping point. Now we're realising these koalas are declining, they are a threatened species, and so we really have to look at practical solutions. The problem is now we're also looking at a tipping point in science and conservation where it's not been as funded as much as it should be. So we're looking at these issues as if we don't do this, we don't keep the people working on koalas and identifying the threats, because we still have a lot to know about the individual requirements that the koalas have, we will start seeing even more declines, and we're seeing rapid declines throughout their range already.
Wild koalas are found from west of Cairns in far north Queensland, right down into South Australia. The vast majority of koalas live on the coastal side of the mountain ranges going down into Victoria. But deforestation is taking its toll.
It's the threat to them is loss of habitat. And it's the old principle, you don't have to be going after a species to cause it problem. If you take away its habitat, it has nowhere to live, and their numbers start to fall and fall dramatically. And once those numbers come down, you then have, by definition, a smaller gene pool, which makes the whole species increasingly vulnerable.
Dr. Crowther is as close as Australia gets to a koala crusader. He stumbled upon the unthinkable while doing research in New South Wales.
Well, I became interested when I worked with the New South Wales state government a couple of years ago. People were concerned that koalas started declining in number. Well, they had declining in a while, but we want to know the current status. And we found, yes, that they had significantly declined.
Koalas rely on quality eucalyptus, which means quality soil, but competition for land is fierce.
Unfortunately, this is also the soils that we need for our agriculture. And then when you move that along to what's happened to Australia, that's also the area that's been cleared for development where people live now.
Dr. Crowther says the koala is facing a perfect storm of threats, all stemming from man's encroachment on Australia's once vast, pristine eucalyptus forests.
The key threats was loss of habitat, loss of trees, the loss and fragmentation of their habitats. So they don't have enough trees for food, to get all their food requirements, and also their shelter requirements, because we found that they need trees for shelter from the heat and from predation from things such as dogs. So you combine that with the fragmentation of the habitat, you can put roads in there so they die by cars, people's dogs will kill them as well, and plus there's the fire threat, so you put them all together, throw in disease on the top because they're crowded together, and they enter what we call an extinction vortex.
And one element in that vortex is distinctly human. In people, chlamydia is a common sexually transmitted disease. A different strain infects koalas, but it too can be spread sexually and is causing a devastating epidemic. In some parts of Australia, koala infection rates are as high as 90%. Chlamydia affects male and female koalas and even the little ones called joeys, causing blindness and infertility in koalas and can be fatal. In part thanks to Crowther's work, the focus is shifting from combating distinct threats to seeking one simple goal: protecting koala habitat.
The problem is if they have nowhere to live. So you can breed as much as you want, but if you're dying because of getting hit by cars, attacked by dogs, getting disease, fires killing you, as well as you've just not got anywhere to go, especially during heat. We're finding now that heat waves are increasing, and that's killing koalas because they can't get their food and nutrient requirements and they just die. So they'll sit at the bottom of the trees and die. So you combine these all together, and that's the problem for koalas. The reproduction side of it, they're fine. It's the habitat, is what they need to survive.
The koala gets its name from an ancient Aboriginal word meaning no drink, because it receives over 90% of its hydration from the eucalyptus leaves, also known as gum leaves, it eats, and only drinks when ill or times when there is not enough moisture in the leaves, which, as Australia warns, is becoming more and more regularly. With bushfire season already hampering much of Australia's eastern seaboard, climate change poses its own set of problems.
Research, you can find that. But also what we've got to do is, because it is getting hotter, we are getting heat waves and that kills them. We have to maintain the trees that we have, particularly old trees that they use to shelter, and we also have to create networks of trees. So we've got to plant more trees so they have trees in the future, as well as keep the trees we have. So that's the main thing.
However, when extinction comes knocking, it helps to be one of nature's great celebrities.
Because they're so iconic, because when people see a panda they think of China, when people see a koala they think of Australia, because of that deep connection that runs not just into the hearts of the people who live in each country, but into the hearts of people around the world when they think of each country, it gives us an opportunity to really rally behind turning these things around.
Its global status as wildlife rock star gives the koala an edge over the multitude of fragile Australian animals facing similar threats but lacking the PR punch enjoyed by koalas, which makes breeding zoos and their work so important.
Now, what you don't see every day, even here at Wildlife Sydney Zoo, is a sugar glider. Now this is fully grown. I think this one's called Popcorn. Popcorn's fully grown, and they can jump up to 50 metres from tree to tree because they've got the lining here that allows them to glide. Now, they're extraordinary little animals, and this is one of the few places in Australia that's actually looking after them and helping them get back into wildlife conditions. So I'll just let Popcorn keep eating that grape and get out of here.
In the heart of Sydney, the Wildlife Sydney Zoo is working hard to emulate the panda sanctuaries of Sichuan and outreach programs that sees panda breeding in far-off places like the Adelaide Zoo in South Australia.
Here we are in the Sydney CBD. You wouldn't believe it, but I'm surrounded by koalas at Wildlife Sydney Zoo. I've got Bruce above me and little Blinky Bill to my right, who smells fantastic. We've got Justine, who's one of Sydney's most expert koala experts, and we're going to talk to her a little bit about what these guys are up to.
Justine Powell is part of a Wildlife Sydney Zoo team that works round the clock, nurturing and providing for an animal that sleeps 20 hours a day and remains apparently blissfully unaware of the dangers it faces.
Unfortunately for koalas, they're not doing too well out in the wild, but you do have zoo institutes like ourselves that we have breeding programs that we can help bring up the numbers for the koala population. So habitat destruction definitely is a main key for them.
Koala live for around 12 years in the wild and longer in captivity. According to Justine, each one is unique in its own quirky, slothful way.
they have all their own different personalities, that's for sure. So you have a look at Sid here. He definitely loves to sleep, just like all the other koalas, but some of them will like to also sniff over, have a look at what's going on, and some others also, they like to sleep a little bit longer.
And do you form personal relationships with them? Are they affectionate?
Not so much affectionate, but they do know that we are here. We take photos with them, so people do come in, meet them quite closely, and they've been raised here in captivity, so they know that people are definitely their friends.
One thing is certain, that despite years of research and funding sourced from all over the world, so little is really known about the way koalas make their decisions in the wild. And 2012 being such an important watershed year for this species, the question is, where will koalas be in 20 years from now? Can you imagine an Australia without koalas?
Well, it would be a difficult thing to do because they're an iconic species. They're actually one of our main sources of tourism incomes. There was a study a few years ago showing why do people come to Australia, and one of the things right at the top of the list was to see koalas. So from a cultural point of view and from a tourism point of view and part of our heritage point of view, we can't lose them.
Happily, koalas like Bruce and Blanky Bell remain utterly and totally unaware, sleeping through the apocalypse in true Aussie style.
This is CNC World, a new perspective.